I hope this video finds everyone well. This is the final Adventureland video, I'm hoping. This is the Why Not Work at Adventureland. This is my second time doing this. Stupid me. And I had spent a long time making that other one. As I was going through deleting the clips, I deleted the video. I'm real good at doing things like that. So anyway, I'm sort of glad I did, because the thing ended up being just a little over 32 minutes long, and I was trying to cover everything, and I didn't want the video to be that long. And so this time I'm going to do it just like trying to skip a rock across a lake and get this done a little faster. There are a lot of things that the only way you can know the feeling of it is to go do it yourself. Now, you're not under a contract at Adventureland. You do not have to stay there. You're not under house arrest or anything like that. If you get up there and start trying to do this job and you decide that you don't like it, if it's not for you, they ask you to put in a 2 weeks notice. But most of the people that left there, and a lot of them didn't give any notice. They just went and got in their RV and left, or the ones that lived in the area just didn't come back, so that's the way it is a lot of places. But anyway, the first thing I want to start out with is the pay. I did a thing about how much I made and all that in that first video. I did want to let everybody know, and I'm considering this a disadvantage, because all I wanted to work was regular hours. But they were short on help up there. I mean, bad short. And just about every day that I went into work, and I imagine everybody else, every day they went into work, were asked if they wanted to work a double tomorrow, if they wanted to pick up any relief shifts and stuff like that. And I really didn't want to. I was told in the initial interview over the phone that the shifts were going to be from 5 to 7 hours long, and that's what I counted on. It was 6-day weeks. Once the park got fully open, you started out on weekends in the beginning and just weekends in the end. But there was a real big middle in there where you work 6 days a week anyway, and that was enough for me. I would actually rather work a 5-day week. That would have given me 2 days to explore the area a little bit, spend some more time with friends and stuff like that. But that was part of the deal, and like I say, I consider that a disadvantage. I didn't want to work 6 days a week, and I surely didn't want to work double 6 days a week. But finally, toward the end there, I had worked a couple here and there when I was directly asked or told that I was really needed or whatever. But there toward the end, just in the spirit of wanting to be a team member or a team player, however you want to put it, I told them that I would work Monday and Tuesday doubles, and that's all I was going to do. So I don't know, the last 3 or 4 weeks I worked doubles on Monday and Tuesday. Now, I know everybody would like to have a little more money in their pocket, but most of my life I worked days and nights. I worked on jobs that were long hours, and I'm trying to enjoy a little bit of time off here toward my later years. And most of the people up there at that park were in their later years. But I'm talking about the RV campers. They had a lot of young people that were locals, like school kids and stuff like that. But I just didn't want to work that much. And so in next year, I'm sure it's just going to be the same thing. And I guess this is a good time to say it, but I'm not going to do this again. I had some people that I met up there that were friends that were saying, "Oh, well, why don't you come back next year," and stuff like that. And I mean, I'm glad I did that, and it's an experience that I'll remember, and I met a lot of good people up there, and all that. But the job aggravated me, and toward the end of it, I was counting the days down. I couldn't wait to get out of there, and it wasn't so bad when it got down to weekends, but then there you are just working Saturday and Sunday. But I did take a good trip, and I did some videos on it. Some friends of mine came through, and we went out to South Dakota and up to northeastern Wyoming and stuff like that. So I took one of those weeks and really enjoyed it. But anyway, let me get into some of the things besides. Oh, the reason I brought up the pay thing is because I didn't make that much money for a 6-month period. If you'll go back and look at the first tape, you can see I didn't even make $5,000 in the whole 6 months. But if you wanted to work double shifts, I mean, there was plenty of money there to be made. Now, they didn't pay overtime. The state of Iowa considered that a temporary job, and didn't require employers to pay time and a half over 40. Now, if they had done that, I may have been a little more interested in it. If they had wanted to compensate me for my time fairly, then maybe I would have worked some more hours. But you could have worked 100 hours a week, and it was just at straight pay, and I just really didn't consider that worth it to me, so I didn't do it. But anyway, let me get on to a couple of things, and like I say, I'm going to try to keep this a little shorter, but there were a couple of things there at the park that I didn't like, that I don't really think they had anything that they could do about it. One thing, I'm not real good at doing tedious work, and running those rides is a real tedious job. I mean, it's everybody toward the end of the day was looking at their watch trying to see, man, how long is it till I get off of here? Because you're doing the same thing over and over. You put people on the rides, you ride them, you take them off the ride. You put people on the ride, you ride them, you take them off the ride. This goes on the entire shift. And there's nothing the park can do about that. What they did do, though, which was a good idea, was we only had to work a job for a week. And new jobs started on Monday. And then you had a day off somewhere in the week, assuming you wanted a day off. And so the job ended then on Sunday. So they, understanding that that's tedious work and stuff like that, and that you could get tired of running a ride, they did give us different assignments every week. Now, if you could get a repeat assignment down the road, if you were working one ride this week, maybe 6 weeks later you'd get that again for a week. But at least they tried to break it up, and I'll give them credit for that. But that didn't help as much as you would think it would. A second thing that was really bad, that there's nothing that they could do about, the day shift workers were lunch reliefs for the night shift workers, and night shift workers were lunch relief for the day shift workers. And so, and I'm going to use night shift rides. I think retail may have been about the same way. I don't know what they did in foods, but everything I do here is going to be from a perspective of a night shift rides operator. But you would go into the commissary where we all met. The shift started at 3 o'clock, and we would show up 20 minutes before that. And that would give you time to get a little briefing if there was one, and to get to your ride by 3 o'clock to relieve the person you were relieving. And so they would start lunch breaks at 4 o'clock. So here you were getting to work at 3, and at 4 somebody's coming by to relieve you. And I thought that was pretty bad, because you got 30 minutes, and you get relieved at 4 o'clock, and then you have to be back to your ride at 4:30, and then it's a Friday or Saturday, and it doesn't close. The place doesn't close till 10 o'clock. So there's a lot of time there between coming back from lunch and the time you get off. And a whole lot of those jobs, there's no sitting down and no stopping, and so it can turn out to be a really long time. One assistant on a ride that I was operating was looking at his watch so much one day to get off. I said, "Man, you're going to look the numbers right off that watch." And he laughed and said, "Well, it's, because I'm telling you, you're on that ride and you look at your watch and it's 5:15, and 30 minutes later you look back at your watch and it's 5:20. I mean, it seems like time is going that slow." So, I mean, that's just the way it is, and there's nothing they can do about the lunch breaks as far as I know, because there just aren't that many people at the park to just come around and do lunch breaks. I've already said I didn't like the 6-day week. So I imagine there's nothing they can do about that, because they're short on help anyway. And if people were just working 5 days, you would have another whole day of shifts to fill all over the park, and they just didn't have the help to do it. So anyway, I'll move on to the next thing. Something else I found out in these amusement parks, that this is like the epicenter of where lawyers and insurance companies have chosen to have their Armageddon. They, some of the rules and stuff that they have there are just, they seem to be insane. And of course, I'm not experienced enough in the ride business to know exactly what it takes to keep people safe or whatever, but some of the stuff that was going on there was just crazy. I'll give you an example. There were about 3 rides there that you weren't allowed to ride single riders, which means that if someone that came from out of town and they wanted to spend some time at the amusement park, that they couldn't ride those rides. You would try to pair them up with another person in line and stuff like that, or if there were 2 single people on the ride, you'd get them to sit together and all that, but you spent more time trying to get people paired up or try to find somebody to ride with this individual than they stood in line, or sometimes or it was even took longer to do that than to do the actual ride. So I mean, it was really a pain in the butt. I'm not going to carry on about it any more than that. I did in the other video I did, because I was operating a ride like that one time, and I got a little break from it because someone threw up, and a couple of the managers came by. If somebody throws up on a ride, you have to shut it down and call a cleaning crew, and they get there pretty quick and do a good job with it and all that. But I told a couple of managers, I said, if I get this ride again, my Winnebago is going to be pointed toward Birmingham, because I'm not going to do this. You've got some 280-pound sweaty gorilla sitting on this ride, and you're over in the line trying to get some little teenage girl to sit with him, and promising her that she can ride twice and all that if she'll ride with this guy, and they don't want to. So what you have to do is go tell the guy, "I'm sorry, but you're going to have to get off the ride." And I hated doing this so much that it was unbelievable. And one Sunday, I counted how many people that I had to tell to leave that ride, and it was called The Falling Star. There are movies about the Falling Star on YouTube if you want to look it up. But I had to tell 13 people that they couldn't ride that day, that they had to get off. And I was told off more on the week that I was on that ride. I was told off more than I was in the last 10 years of my life, probably. And I told the people, go to the office up there and complain to them and tell them that the ride's operator agrees with you. It's crazy. It's insane. But what happens on those rides is, like on the giant sky wheel, which is their answer to the Ferris wheel, you couldn't have single riders on that ride. someone years ago at a park somewhere else got up to the top of one of those and committed suicide by jumping off of the ride. And so now, for the rest of eternity, the other 300 million of us can't ride that ride by ourselves. I mean, this is just a classic case of overreaction to something. And there were 3 rides at the park that were like that. Someone somewhere did something stupid and got injured or jumped out of the ride, and so from now on, everybody else in the country has to be irritated by this crap. And so, you know, that's something that I wouldn't go back up there because I'd be afraid I'd get one of those rides. And I'm just not going to do that. Something else they do that's really bad is there's a water park there, and you can't just go into the water park. You have to enter the amusement park, and the water park's all the way at the other end of the amusement park. So what people do, and it's understandable, is that they go down to the water park and spend as much time there as they want to today. And then on the way out, they stop and ride a few rides and stuff like that. Completely understandable. But the issue is that they have these big bags full of wet towels and bathing suits and whatever, change of clothes and all this kind of stuff. I mean, some women, a lot of women, had bags that were like 2 feet long by 12 or 16 inches wide by 8 or 10 inches deep, full of stuff, and they weren't allowed to put these items on the deck of the ride. They made them take these items with them onto the ride, whether there was really any room for it or not. Another thing was most people had a backpack. You know how kids are these days. They have backpacks full of stuff. They weren't allowed to take the backpack or set the backpack down. They had to take it on the ride with them. And I mean, that was just the only reason for it was, and this wasn't any law or anything else, this was a park rule, is they were scared to death somebody was going to steal somebody's backpack. Now, people were allowed on all these rides, if they had won a stuffed animal, or if they had bought some souvenirs of some t-shirts or some hats or something like that, they were allowed to set that down on the deck by the ride. And the reasoning behind that was that the park could replace their Adventureland t-shirt, but they might not be able to replace the contents of a backpack. And there are signs all over the place saying that the park isn't responsible for lost items, and I don't know why this wouldn't apply in this case. And besides that, it would be kind of hard for somebody to steal a person's backpack when they sit it right out to the side of their ride, and the ride comes back and stops at the same place every time, and their backpack is going to be right there. So you spend most of your time trying to get the park guest to follow tons of rules passed by the state legislature. Some of them claimed it was state legislature doing it. The other part of it, again, is the insurance companies and the lawyers both battling it out, trying to see who's going to get the money or who's going to keep the money. But anyway, it was just really irritating, and it's just something that I don't want to do anymore. I'm done with it. And there were some of the employees, and some of them had been there for years, just loved to scream and shout at the guests. I really got tired of hearing some of those folks. There were fences, which were aisles, if you want to call it that, up to most of the rides. And they built them so that they were real easy to sit on. And this sitting on the fences just really irritated some people to the point of making them almost act insane. Shouting at people, "Get off that fence!" You know, just crazy. All I ever had to do was look over at somebody and just go like that, and they knew I meant get off the fence. But the easiest thing to do would be to put up some pickets every 6 inches on center so that people couldn't sit on the fence. If you don't want people sitting on the fence, then make a fence that they can't sit on. There are just some things that are just way too easy to figure out that people don't try to do. So I'm going to move on to something else now. Another thing, and no offense to the people of Iowa, they were real nice people, middle America at its best. They were following some of those rules at that park that I think a lot of people in other parts of the country would have told them where to put it. So I can't say anything bad about the people of Iowa at all. They were trying to teach their children to say please and thank you. I was amazed at how many times a child got off a ride and said thank you, sir, and stuff like that. I mean, it was just unbelievable in that way. But if I kept going back there year after year, then that would mean that I was living 6 months of my life in Iowa, and I really don't want to live in Iowa that bad. So, I mean, that's just another little thing. But anyway, in summation, like I've already said, you'll have to try this on your own, and you're not under contract. If you don't want to stay there, you don't have to. If you're a person that can put up with repetition, then that's fine. If you're a person that doesn't have any issues with making other people follow rules or whatever, then you'll be fine. I've already said in the other video that the management, I really believe they were good people and trying to do the right thing. So, and not trying to make this too long, I could go over some other things, but I've done this. I'm glad I did it. I'm just not going to do it anymore. A couple of the people up there said, oh, well, why don't you come back next year? We'll miss you and all that. And then, you know, I appreciate their attitude. But that was just enough for me. And I told them that if I couldn't find any way to pay any rent, or if I couldn't find any way to buy any groceries, that I would come up there and do that again. But I don't know. I don't see in the foreseeable future me not being able to buy a ham sandwich somewhere. So that's going to be the end of that. Anyway, if anyone has any questions or anything on something that maybe I didn't cover, then please go ahead and ask those questions. I'd love to answer them for you. And so I hope this video found you well. And this is the last Adventureland video I'm going to kill you with. I'm happy for me and you about that. So anyway, so long.